Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Asher Marketing Podcast. This podcast is hosted by Asher Agency, a full-service partner to clients nationwide. Asher's services include media planning, creative, digital and social, website development, public relations, printing and fulfillment, and more. Anything you need to connect with your prospects and tell your story. To learn more, visit asheragency.com or contact us at hello@asheragency.com. My guest is Jennifer Goddard. Jennifer, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Well, thank you so much for joining us from the great state of West Virginia. Some of the listeners to the podcast may remember that Asher has offices not only in Indiana, but also in West Virginia. And you have the pleasure of working with some of our folks there, and they have the pleasure of working with you. So tell me a little bit about some of the things you've worked on with Asher and who you've worked with on our team.
Well, I have been with YWCA Charleston for about 7 years and in the role as CEO for just over a year now. And so I've had the great pleasure of working with Steve Morrison and with Ashley in your organization and some folks who have been through your doors in the past. And just, working as volunteers and as colleagues and in the community as well. So, we think so highly of our friends at the Asher Agency. Your team does amazing work. They partner with us on our Girls Night Out event and all of the materials that support that event, as well as our Foodie Feast event. And YWCA Charleston, our mission is eliminating racism and empowering women, promoting peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. And we live our mission in the community through our programs that we operate. So we serve victims of domestic violence, women and families experiencing homelessness, senior survivors of elder abuse and chronic homelessness. We have a child development center, ages 6 weeks up until age 12, through early childhood development program and after-school programming. We have our Center for Racial Equity and Inclusion and our Racial Equity and Inclusion program. And we also have our gently used clothing store. And so all of that to say that Steve and Ashley are really involved in helping with the look and feel of two of our signature events that raise funds for two of those programs. Girls Night Out is in its 26th year of raising funds. It's a party with a purpose to raise money for our domestic violence program, the Resolve Family Abuse program. And so Asher has been involved for a long time with helping create graphics, helping to advise on making this a really elevated event that is for ladies only every summer, to make sure that folks are aware of the domestic violence services available and giving us the ability to offer those services for no cost to survivors. And then our Foodie Feast event that they've helped us really shape and elevate. It's a kind of a Thanksgiving theme with a foodie twist. And we host a luncheon, a brunch every year to raise money for our Sojourner Shelter for homeless women and families. And they've just done an amazing job over time as partners in this event and the Girls Night Out over time.
Well, I know that we very much appreciate the opportunity to work with you and help you with the important work that you do. And Steve and Ashley are two of our best. So I really appreciate them connecting us. But Jennifer, I want to, in just a minute, I want to hear more about some of the work that you're doing. But I want to start by going a little bit back in time, because you come from somewhat of a public relations background. And a lot of the folks who listen to this podcast, they have a particular interest in the career paths of our guests. So I'd like you to tell me when you first started thinking about careers and where that took you in terms of a career path, and when you diverted and how you diverted. It sounded like that might have happened about a year ago, but walk me through your career path, if you would. Where did it start and where did you go from there?
Sure. It's funny when you think about when you're a little kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? Everyone's parents, I hope, ask that question of the kids in their lives. My parents always wanted to know, what did I want to be when I grew up? And, I had lots of crazy ideas. I thought I wanted to be an archaeologist because I used to read National Geographic and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And I thought that would be a great career. And then I remember The Love Boat came on TV and I was like, oh, I want to be a cruise director. And my parents were like, well, those are really interesting career ideas. And as time went by and I started looking at what my skills and talents were and hearing feedback from teachers in school. And it was really clear when I was on the school newspaper when I was in high school, one of my advisors was really very tuned into what we were doing. And she said, you've really got a lot of skills that would make you a great public relations person. Do you know anything about that, or would you like to know about that? And she gave me some great resources, connected me with some folks in our community who were doing that type of work. And I was like, yeah, this is it. This is what I want to do. So I was really lucky to get great feedback and great support early on. And so I went to Ohio University in Athens, Ohio, studied journalism at the Scripps School of Journalism. So I have a journalism by training background with a focus on public relations, and really learned about the old school journalism, the ethics, and making sure that when you're a public relations practitioner, you are not doing things that are opposed to the greater good. I've been a member of the Public Relations Society of America for more years than I'd care to admit. I joined right after I graduated from college and worked for a nonprofit early in my career as a communications coordinator for a small nonprofit here in the community. I grew up in Charleston, and so had great ties to Charleston my whole career. And as you do when you have a career that doesn't pay very well, your very first job never pays well. At least you think you want to go off. I thought I wanted to go off to the big city of New York, and I was so excited when I got offered a job at a big PR agency in New York City. And I was telling my dad about it. And we had lived in New Jersey when I was younger. So he was just like, well, so what are you going to do for your other job? Because that one job, what they're offering you will not pay the bills, and you will not be living in New York City with that kind of a pay. He's like, maybe you need to think about that. So thankfully I did, and found the job that I then took in Charleston, working for a nonprofit. It was a statewide child advocacy organization, and it was just getting started. So I really had an opportunity to take all the things I learned in college in public relations and apply that to, doing a campaign and doing community education and community organizing and true child advocacy. We did outreach to business people, and we did outreach to members of the faith communities, and we worked with a national partner. So it was a really exciting first job. And because I was the, one of 3 paid staff people, I did it all. I used to take press releases home and, stuff envelopes and mail them out, because I felt like I was an overachiever when I realized that you could program your fax machine and send press releases out overnight while you were not there. And people were like, wow, that was a great thing to do, So doing things in a way that, where you have to figure it out yourself, and you're a one-person shop. I was doing a newsletter. I was doing community events. We were doing a data book, and, I learned how to do desktop publishing because there was no one else to do it.
Yeah.
Going on photo shoots with really talented people, photographers, and I knew nothing. And they were gracious enough to say, oh, well, your job is to do this, let's work on the shot list together. When I learned how the printing business worked, and I had never gotten estimates for anything. And, all of a sudden I was tasked with getting print estimates from 3 printers for this data book, and, having people who were kind enough to take the time to help me come along in my career, and working with a lot of community partners. We had great volunteers because we were a nonprofit. They were willing to share their time with us. And that led me to the next step in my career, where I then, went to work for an advertising and public relations firm, a regional, very, very big kind of powerhouse in the community. An awful lot of the talented people in our community today walk through those doors too. That I learned everything there was to know, because, all of a sudden it was my job to do certain things. And then took a shift from public relations for a while, and they needed somebody in the advertising department as an account executive. And so off I went to the world of advertising. So all of a sudden I was scheduling television commercial shoots and magazine features, and again, working with people who were, willing to help me grow in my career. It was a great training ground. I had people who said, well, have you ever done a political campaign? Have you ever done TV ads and radio ads? And I said, well, no, I haven't, but, I'm willing to learn. And so they trial by fire got it done. So I was involved in gubernatorial campaigns in the state of West Virginia, and learned an awful lot about that. Learned how to, get approvals done quickly, get things done, get things shipped, because it was just when digital files and digital file transmission was shifting. So there was still a little bit of panic when you were hopeful that everything that had to be on the air was getting out the way it should. And then from there, I moved into the corporate world and worked for a natural gas transmission company, was one of their communications coordinators, and did a lot of employee communications. So, helped with doing the employee newsletter, shifting that from print to the employee intranet, getting it online, working with folks to help our CEO when they were doing employee roundtables, getting them out to locations and working with people in the community. I was lucky enough to work with all of our nonprofit partners and get an opportunity to say, oh, well, these dollars are really important in this community. And knowing that a community in Charleston, West Virginia looks very different from a rural Virginia community or a, southeastern Mississippi community, and helping our team members make the most use of all of those dollars. And then doing stakeholder outreach, where we were putting in new transmission lines and new compressor stations, and people, were mad because we were digging up their backyard, and you were getting poked in the chest because we had some angry landowners, and being able to help get their questions answered and understanding what their concerns were. And that was a great opportunity. I learned so much working with really talented people my whole career. In the corporate arena, it was great having a corporate environment where they taught you the value of building a corporate culture and being a part of a team. And I was very thankful to have a lot of continuing education opportunities. I was able to get a master's degree in organizational management and get kind of in the management track at that point. And that was really valuable because I was able to learn more about the business side of things and the management side of things, that, skills that I didn't really have. I had not supervised people early in my career, and it was great to get the education, the formal education in that to help me to get to where I am today. The corporate environment is always changing, and when the company decided that they were pulling back from Charleston, West Virginia, I found myself looking for a new career opportunity. And I was really fortunate to go to work for a kind of a boutique consulting firm that does stakeholder outreach and community advisory panels. And so I spent almost 7 years with that organization, really, working with corporate partners all across the country, some Fortune 500 partners that wanted to be in a community and get to know their neighbors and inform the community about what was happening behind the fence line, heavily into the chemical industry, the refining industry, the natural gas and mining industries. So, a lot of the companies that are often considered to be folks that you don't want in your community, you don't want them to be your neighbors. And the fact is they're everywhere and they are neighbors. So it was a really great opportunity to help build relationships. And I think everything that I've done in my career has been about building relationships. It was just a matter of what that vehicle was, whether it was paid advertising or public relations, earned media, or true neighbor to neighbor across the dinner table, because we would have dinner with the community members, and then the folks from the company would talk about a topic that was of interest to the community members and invite people in to talk about specific topics if they were expanding a plant or extending an area of operation into a new community. So it was really a great opportunity for me, again, just building on all these pieces and parts of my career that then led me from the consulting firm into a kind of a change. I was traveling, I was on the road so much, being out of town so much, I wasn't feeling like I was a part of my own community. Yeah. And an opportunity came up where I worked for the State Department of Commerce for almost 2 years in their communications department, helping our business development folks talk about how great West Virginia is and let people know that West Virginia is a great place to do business. And so it was always that on an airplane, I'd end up chatting with somebody next to me about West Virginia and dispelling those myths about West Virginia anywhere you go. And that was really exciting. I got to help build some great identity for the state and worked on trade show booths and materials to hand out and celebrations. So I had a really great opportunity there and enjoyed it. And then, I've always been a volunteer as much as I could be in the community. Even when I was traveling significantly, I've served on nonprofit boards my whole life, and always had an affinity for the work of the YWCA. Certainly a passion, of mine to make sure that we were, eliminating racism and empowering women has always been a part of my makeup. And so being able to find a career opportunity when I was really looking for something different, and the chief program officer position is how I entered the YWCA 7 years ago. They were looking for someone who had the ability to, build the team, help the program directors really make sure that if there were obstacles they were encountering, what could we do to support them? How could we just continue with the great work and even be better and do more to really build the quality of the programs and make sure that everyone was getting what they needed from our organization. So that's how I came into the YWCA. It was back to, kind of a full circle almost, where I started in the nonprofit arena and then had great opportunity to really build lots of different skills and then bring all that as the chief program officer.
Yeah, there's a couple things in all that strike me, Jennifer. One is how it seems like a lot of the transitions you made were right place, right time, and really built off your past experience. And I'm really glad to hear you use some terms that sounds like you and I are similar vintage, to hear about stuffing envelopes and fax machines. That will completely alienate some of our younger listeners, but for me, that's good stuff because I remember those days when things weren't quite as easy. So you work in one capacity with the YWCA. Talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about that work and then how you found yourself in the CEO chair, because that's obviously a very different job than the PR work you'd been doing today.
It's interesting. Some of it seems very different, but it all comes down to really, the core of public relations, which is communication and building and maintaining relationships. I have my accreditation in public relations, my APR. I've been involved in the Public Relations Society of America my whole career. It was a great way to network and a great way to get out there and really talk to people in our community and in the industry across the whole state. I loved working with students and understanding, what's happening in education of people in this field, because you can't stay in one spot if you're a communications or marketing professional. You really have to keep evolving because, it's all about communication and knowing your audiences. And for me, understanding that we used to send out press releases, but now it's much more heavily into social media and engaging your audiences through shorter, crisper bites of information for them. But it's all to the same purpose. It's all about those relationships. People want to feel like they are connected to you. They want to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. And that's no different whether it's internal or external audiences for me. Our team at the YWCA Charleston, we operate in Boone, Clay, and Kanawha counties. So it's sort of the metro area plus of Charleston for those who are not from West Virginia. It's our capital city. And so, those we serve look very different in the northern and southern and far eastern and western edges of our territory because they're much more rural. And then you have Charleston, the capital city, which has a little more density to it and it's a little more urban. And so you really have to think about when you're talking to funders, when you're talking to community partners, when you're talking to those who need your services, you have to know how to connect. And so, for me, it's all about understanding what do people want from us and what do people need from us. And we have about 100 employees. So our employees need and want some of the same things and some very different things compared to our program participants. And our donors and our community partners need different things from us. So for me, shifting from chief program officer, where it was nuts and bolts of operations, it was making sure that we had a really good, solid foundation for our program directors so that they could get the resources they need. if they were having a challenge because they had a client who had really difficult needs and, they'd done everything they could do. My job was to help them figure out, okay, what obstacles are we facing and who can help us to help this client get their needs met, and how can we empower this person, not just hand them a solution, but really, collaborate and work together. So, my job was really, as the chief program officer, was to partner with our team members. And sometimes it was, as simple as pulling one program director together with another program director and saying, hey, how can you help each other with this solution? Because you're, if you don't help figure it out now, this person might then become your client. And, it's just a matter of being that step removed. You can see things in a different way than the person who's doing the day-to-day work. A lot of what I did was, if somebody had dissatisfaction with one of the services they were provided, or there was a situation where, someone felt like they weren't treated fairly, I was a part of that. Part of it, a lot of HR activity happened with that position for me. So coming from chief program officer for 7 years, where, I was the call when, there was a burst pipe in a facility and we had to find accommodations for people because the water was being turned off because we had a flood, and, or there was a fire and we had to evacuate a building, and making sure we could still get everybody dinner because we still needed to feed everybody.
Yeah.
So just being that resource. It wasn't that the program directors ever needed my help in the moment. It was really helping them manage the ongoing solutions. And it was, it was really challenging. No day has ever been the same since I've been here. COVID was certainly something that was just a huge challenge.
Yeah.
You can imagine, because we didn't ever close down our shelter for homeless women and families. And that's a 75-bed shelter.
Oh, wow.
And so that's a lot of people to take care of. And it serves women and children and families. So if you're a husband and wife and 2 children and you're experiencing homelessness, you're at our Sojourner Shelter for Homeless Women and Families. And we're helping you to figure out what got you there and what services and things you need to help you get out of that situation and build a better future. And it's not just, we'll just stay here till you figure it out. We're going to help you figure it out. And so during COVID, it switched from what was very normal in everybody's lives to everything in the whole world was upside down. And we weren't just worried about ourselves. We were providing life-saving shelter for people. Same thing with domestic violence victims. If you had fled your abuser and you were now in a shelter, you still needed to get to work. You still needed all the things that people were still needing on the outside world, so to speak. And so, realizing that, at one point we were like, oh my gosh, we need toilet paper just like everybody else. And we don't just need it for a family, we need it for 75 people.
Yeah.
So making sure that we talked to community partners and said, hey, we could really use some help on this. Do you have any resources that you could help us out with? And people, the one thing that is so amazing to me, and just I want people to know, is that, and I know a lot of other nonprofits experience this, but whenever we have a problem, our community is behind us 100%. And so during COVID, we had people calling us saying, hey, how can we help you? What do you need? We figured out our own situation and we want to make sure that we're helping you continue to serve the folks that you serve every day. And, on a really, really tough day, that's the thing that I sort of was able to lean into, is that no matter how hard my day is, or how hard a situation someone is dealing with in our program, we have people who believe in our mission and people who want to make sure that they're helping us to help serve our community. And no one wants us to fail ever. So it's a really great thing to be a part of this community and know that we've got such a legacy. I mean, YWCA Charleston was founded in 1912. So we've got 114 years of community service that we can show the success that we've had every day, and being able to lean on that and have people say, oh, well, we're here for you. We're not going to let YWCA down. We're going to make sure that you have what you need. It's a really great position to come into. So I've been a part of this organization for 7.5 years. And when our long-term CEO retired, announced her retirement, they did a national search. And I was really, really honored when, after several months of a search process, they invited me to become the next CEO in 2022. And at the end of 2022, I stepped up as the CEO full time. So 2023 was my first full year as the CEO. I had the opportunity to see things from a little different perspective because, my role had been very different. Now I'm very much in, the CEO role, and I'm really fortunate. People remind me, people who care about me are like, don't forget, it's all about what can only you do. You need to stay in your CEO space
Yeah,
and
delegate
let other,
delegate
yeah,
as much as possible. Yeah, that can be hard. Yeah.
yeah. So it's a lot of fun to think about what we are now and what a great legacy we own, and how we can continue to meet the needs of those we serve, and also look ahead to the future of, what does our community need and want from us, and what do those we serve need and want from us. And also, what about our own employees? Again, 100 employees almost in this organization. I want to make sure that, we're treating everyone within the YWCA universe with the same dignity and respect and kindness. That's what it all comes down to. I don't want to ever have our employees feel that our mission isn't supporting them as much as it is those we serve. And it's a tall order. There's been a great community capacity for a lot of change going on because of the situations that happened in 2019 and 2020, the horrible situations that happened with the murder of George Floyd. They talked about the racial reckoning that occurred in our community, and well, in the whole country.
Yeah.
And then, just it's 2024 and the need hasn't changed, but some of the narrative is changing about what needs to happen in our community. So, we stand fast with our mission. We believe that, we are not stepping away from our mission of eliminating racism and empowering women. And sometimes that requires hard conversations. Sometimes it requires people to have maybe a change of perspective.
Yeah.
And so our goal is to invite people into the conversation and understand that everything we do as a service provider in our community is under our mission. We live our mission through the services we provide.
Yeah, well, it's critically important work, and has always been important. But as you mentioned, some of the social justice topics have become much more at the forefront in ways that are great and a long time coming, and in ways that present a lot of challenges. Tell me a little bit, Jennifer, as you look ahead, both short term and long term, what are some of the things that are top priorities for you, maybe for the rest of 2024, but also things that you think you're going to be working on for some time after that, that are maybe at the top of your to-do list, if you will, top of the organization's list of priorities?
Sure. Our organization, we have a great board of directors, we have great committees, and a lot of people who really care about our mission and care about how we serve our community. And one of the things, we have a strategic plan, and it's time to create the next plan. We're sunsetting on our strategic plan. So helping our senior team, that's, really my focus this year in the next couple months is, we know we have a new strategic plan to develop. So listening to our directors, listening to our staff members to understand how do they feel about what we're doing and how we're doing things, and setting the stage so that we can continue to grow and evolve. And again, staying true to our roots, staying true to our mission, and also being open to the idea that there may be some things that we need to change or shift to continue best serving the needs of our community. That's really what 2024 looks like for me as the CEO, is really, digging deeper, listening to what folks are saying, getting out to talk with our donors and our community partners, because the corporate world is always evolving in terms of, and we depend on an awful lot of different funding streams. We have corporate donors, we have individual donors, we have federal grants, we have state grants, we have foundation grants. So there are so many different people that we need to communicate with on a regular basis. We want to make sure that we're again, listening. What are they looking at? What are their priorities? Have their priorities shifted? So trying to understand how to continue to be relevant always to our people that we serve and also to our community, and allow our community partners to feel like they're playing a part in doing the great work that we do. So that's what my interest is, and my intent is to make sure that we're doing a lot of listening again this year, making sure that we stay relevant, that we're focused on our mission, and that we're inviting people to share what they want from us, so that we can continue to build in our community with the great foundation we have.
Well, and it sounds like you've got quite a lot on your plate. You've got competing priorities, all of which are critically important. You have a nationally known brand, but you need to make it relevant locally in the counties you serve. You have 100 employees. You have a 100+ year legacy. And I hope you're not just now, Jennifer, as I say this, realizing what a daunting job it is, because you're taking on a lot. How do you manage that from the CEO's chair? You mentioned delegation, but what are some of the things that you do to make sure that you're dealing with the right priorities at the right time and trusting your team to deal with the things that are critically important to the organization?
Oh, that struggle is real.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine.
I think that's the hardest part, is that, I think we all tend to, I know I tend to go to where I'm comfortable. And so I'm very comfortable in the communicator role. I'm very comfortable in the program operations role. So for me, it's about staying focused on the things, again, that only I can do. So I know that we've got some work to do with our funders and our community members. And, we really can see that we're going to be changing some of the expectations people have are changing. I'm hearing from some of our community partners that a lot of folks are not as interested in tickets and tables for events.
Mm-hmm.
And so thinking about how do you recast your fundraising and your development to meet those interests. And, so many of our donors have a corporate portal that you go in and you apply, and the questions are very different now than they used to be.
Yeah.
And so being able to look at that as an area where, wow, that's something really I need to be at the forefront of that with our development team, which is, a development marketing director
Yep.
person and 2 other staff people. It's not a gigantic team. If you can
Sure.
think about 100 people, it's a very small team doing a whole lot of work. And so really looking at that as my top priority, and trusting that, we have senior team meetings on the monthly basis, that we gather our program directors and our CFO and our HR director and our, getting all those folks together, and trusting that those wheels are in motion, and that when they need me, they're going to ask me for help.
Yeah.
And trusting that the chief program officer, who's doing an amazing job, is doing, great work with those directors all the time.
Yeah.
And, I'm working with our CFO, I'm working with our HR director, I'm working with our chief program officer and our marketing and development director, to make sure that we're doing what we need to do overall. And I know what I'm accountable for, and just, doing the check-ins to make sure that everybody else gets what they need from me, but not losing focus. Because, as I said, it all comes down to knowing that these are relationships, and we have to communicate with people across the board. I mean, I know that I need to spend so much more of my time with our community partners and
Mm-hmm.
making sure that they
Yeah.
understand. I'm still surprised, and we've had fantastic work across the board for so many years by so many predecessors in marketing and development and, the CEO role. And yet I'm always surprised when I talk to someone about the YWCA and they don't know our mission.
Yeah.
They confuse us with the wonderful folks at the YMCA
Yep.
that has the song and the
Yeah.
dance. And their mission is great. And their mission is, they are spot on and true to their
Yeah.
mission. And so being able to help people understand YWCA's mission is eliminating racism and empowering women and promoting peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. And every day our job is to live that mission in our community and help people understand that, that's through the services we provide. And so we want to make sure that people get that. And people, I'm very thankful, have a passion. Maybe they know one of our programs.
Yeah.
And they'll say, "Oh, well, yeah, I'm really familiar with your foodie feast, or I always go to girls' night out." They know an event, or, "Oh, my church volunteers, we pack backpacks for, after school programs, and we know that, Sojourners Shelter gets some of our backpacks every fall." And they love, and I love that they all have a passion for a specific program. That's great. And I also want people to know that we're bigger than what they see, or maybe understand that we have so many different facets to the organization, and we serve so many different needs in the community. And without any one of the programs we operate, there would be a huge gaping hole in the structure of our community. And it's important to make sure that people don't fall through the cracks. We serve people every day and provide life-saving services. I mean, there's really not much more important than making sure people are housed and safe and fed and, treated with dignity and allowed to grow and develop. I mean, that's at the core of what we do every day.
Yeah. Well, my hope is that you get a lot of fulfillment out of that work, because it is critically important in every community, and to be doing it in a place that for you is close to home is pretty phenomenal. So Jennifer, in everything you've talked about with your career, you've had some great experiences. You've had some diverse experiences. You've done a lot of different things. You've been in the CEO's chair, but you've also worked in close relationship with those at the top. Tell me, if you don't mind, what's the most important lesson you've taken away from the standpoint of building a successful and fulfilling career? If you're giving advice to someone, what would you say is the most important thing to focus on to have a fulfilling and successful career?
I'm happy to say that I think I learned that early in my career from personal experience with my dad. My dad was, and both my parents were wonderful people. My dad was a corporate guy. He worked for Union Carbide. We made the corporate moves. We came to Charleston because of Union Carbide and the work that he did. He was a great role model for someone going into a corporate environment. He always, he was, he wore a suit. He was in sales. He really, was a great role model. And I can remember talking with him about things early in my career, and I saw how hard he worked. And unfortunately, the way that the best advice I have is, unfortunately, because when he passed away, he was still working.
Yeah.
And I remember that, he had always had this goal that when he was going to retire, he was going to take his fantasy trip, a cross-country railroad trip, when he retired.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry to say, he never got to do that.
Yeah.
And for me, it was a huge life lesson to realize that no matter how much, and he loved his job. I mean, he wouldn't have had the career he had if he hadn't loved it. And, he was beloved by people, reading the condolences from folks that worked with him, his clients, was really special. And, but unfortunately, just, being able to recognize that no matter what, life goes on for the people at work if you're not there.
Yeah. Well, and when you're in the CEO seat, it's hard to get away from it, because there's always something else that needs to be done. And a lot of it is important. So how do you resist that urge? How do you end the day knowing that there's work to be done, but at the same time knowing that there's a life to be lived? How do you make that transition?
It's got to be really intentional. And, I do work a lot of hours, and I do, let people around me know that I am going to be unreachable. I mean, everyone needs and deserves to take that vacation when they have it available. I'm a firm believer. You don't turn over vacation. You don't leave vacation behind. I mean, what a sad day when my mom got that check in the mail for the unused vacation days.
Yeah.
I mean, and I hate to position it that way, but I mean, that truly was such a, huge impression on me. And I was not 30 when my dad passed away. So, that was early in my career. And I, I'm the first one. I like I like being there early.
Yeah.
I check my phone. To this day, I still, have a Sunday night routine where I, look at the week ahead and I make my to-do list and I know what I'm going to be doing for the week because I spent so many years on the road. That
Yeah.
Sunday routine was very important. So I'm pretty set in my ways. I plan ahead. I don't book every minute of every day because there's always going to be something
Yeah.
that comes up that's an
Sure.
emergency, and it usually is. Sometimes it's urgent, sometimes it's an emergency, and you have to be smart enough to know the difference. I think you have to trust that there's a certain amount of control you have to let go of, and you have
Yeah.
to work with people you trust,
Yeah.
and you have to trust that people are going to do the right thing. Um, I love that I have people that I work with who are willing to be accountable for what they do, and they like to ask questions, and we're very clear about what people's roles and responsibilities are. And you know my phone is always on. I mean, but there are times when I'm on vacation that I'm trusting people to do what they need to do, and
Yeah.
you just sort of schedule it in. But to me, it's much better to plan an hour midway through a vacation to go through my emails real quick, or check in with someone and just make sure that there's nothing that really does need my attention.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
but it's
otherwise,
a
otherwise
balance.
you spend your whole vacation waiting for the other shoe to drop. But if you
Yeah,
take that planned time and say, instead of losing my entire vacation, I'm going to concede an hour to make sure everything's in order. And I think the message coming from you, Jennifer, is critically important because people tend to think of us as having just one dimension. She's a CEO, so she must work all the time. And couple great messages there. I think one is take your benefit time. I always tell our people here at Asher, and they don't always listen to me about that and many other things. But I say, you wouldn't leave a paycheck uncashed. Don't leave benefit time unused. And I think that's one of the things that, as you mentioned, unfortunately, we kind of learned from previous generations is that while work, should be an important facet of our life, it shouldn't be the only thing. And, if there's something you want to do outside of work, it's okay to make that a priority.
exactly. Yeah, and I'm a big planner too. So by the time I've decided I'm going on vacation for a week or 10 days even, and yes, I've done that.
Yeah.
I have made plans with my coworkers, my board president. They're going to know that this is coming up and this window of time
Yeah.
is locked in. And so, let's get all these things that need done out of the way. And so if someone does need to reach out, it's truly going to be an emergency. It's
Yeah.
not going to be just routine something. And, my goal is always to have a backup plan so that, I do have some plans to take some trips that I'm not going to be able to check in. I won't
Yeah.
be in the same time zone if I'm lucky,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
2025. I've got a plan where it's going to
Yeah.
be fairly hard to reach me. So I will be making plans with people that, there'll just be windows of time where I'm just not available. And that should be okay for everybody. Now, it doesn't mean that you're
Absolutely.
not working hard and you're not, putting in the extra calories ahead of time
Yeah.
to, do the best you can to plan. But we all need to recharge. We all need that time to just, breathe and process. And I think if nothing else, and granted, I didn't have this. I am so jealous of the people who said, "Oh my gosh, I was so bored during COVID. I cleaned out all my closets." We
Yeah.
didn't get that opportunity. We were
Yeah.
busy all the
Yeah.
time. We were out looking for toilet paper and cleaning supplies just about
Yeah.
every day. We were,
Yeah. Jeez.
back when they were limiting to how many cans of a cleaning product you could get, we were all texting each other and all making our laps through that store because they had 8 cans of it available. And we
Yeah.
would,
Wow.
so I didn't have that downtime. And I'm one of those people where I do like to recharge. I do, you know, turn off the noise and just enjoy the time at home. And I have a wonderful husband and we have a wonderful dog, and we have great friends and family that we like to spend time with. So I do my best to protect that personal time, knowing that there's always going to be you know events that I can't help, and I want to be there when people need me. I want to be but I'm not always the only person who can respond.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice and, super important for people, especially those who may be just getting started in their career, for them to hear that you can be a successful leader and maybe you will only be a successful leader if you take that time to recharge and get away from work while also doing the work up front to make sure the organization's in a good position for you to be gone. That's great advice. All right, so the second quick hit question, if you will, is related to myths and misconceptions about the work that you do. You've already alluded to one, the confusion that sometimes exists between the YW and the YMCA. But what else, Jennifer, is important to you? Maybe a myth or misconception about the YW, about your role, about organizations like the YW, something you want to clear up, or maybe something that doesn't get the attention it deserves.
I've been thinking about this since you mentioned it. And, one of the things because you're in Fort Wayne and you have a lot of folks who work, maybe they're not familiar with West Virginia.
Yeah.
I think it's bigger than that. People don't understand that it is West Virginia. It's its own little state.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful place to live and work. And we have really talented people who really care about their communities. And I think for me, the big myth is that West Virginia is some backward place. And
Yeah.
I can tell you that West Virginia is one of the best places you could live and work and do business. We have, like I said, I mean, we've been here since 1912.
Yep.
YWCA Charleston has a long history of making a difference in the lives of women and families. And a lot of times people think that, oh, well, they're not up to date on things. I mean, we do great work every day. We are, through the work that we do, through our mission, we serve over 5,000 people a year. And that's a lot of people to provide services to. And, we are having conversations about racial equity and inclusion. We are, coordinating with people in our community to look at policies and procedures for, making sure that our community has equity at the forefront. We are looking at how to better serve victims of domestic violence. We're engaged in the court systems. We're involved in policy and legislative conversations because we want everyone to understand that West Virginia is an important state, and we're trying to make sure that it's a great place for everyone.
Yeah, well, and we have that in common because Indiana doesn't always have the best reputation. But I've been to West Virginia and have really enjoyed my time there, only a couple of times, but have always wanted to go back and see it again for a number of different reasons. So maybe the combined message of the last two answers is take your benefit time and take some of it in West Virginia and
That's right.
Maybe see what you're missing. All right. So one last question for you, Jennifer. You do a lot. You have a lot of responsibilities. You do have some good people who help you focus on what's most important. But when it comes to the work you do, what is one tool or trick or tip, could be analog, could be digital, doesn't matter, that is important to you that helps you get your work done?
Well, I am a big user of my calendar and my email.
Yeah.
And I tend to schedule time for things.
Yeah.
I protect time on my calendar for things, making sure that, people know that, they don't necessarily have to know what it is, but it's, if it's a medical appointment, if it's a meeting with my board chair or, doing something in the community, it's important that it's on my calendar. Because if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't happen. Even grant writing, when I'm working on a grant or a plan with, one of our program directors, protecting that time on my calendar is really important. And the other thing too is the tip that I learned that I think is so powerful, and it's dealing with email. It's the 4 Ds. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but if you get your email, you look at your email, it's do it, defer it, delete it, or delegate it. And the 4 Ds of email, when someone told me that, it was life-changing.
Yeah, I had a similar lesson, and one of the biggest takeaways for me is from what you've said. There's really two important ones. One is that You don't need to do everything with every email that comes in right then and there, but the quicker you decide which action is next, the better off you're going to be. And don't use your calendar just for meetings and appointments, because if you don't plan when you do your work during the work day, you're going to end up taking it home at night on the weekend, and other people are going to define your priorities. So I think there's a combined lesson in, if you set up some frameworks and some systems to ensure you're focused on the right priorities at the right time, you're going to have the confidence to get away from work when you need to take some time off and still be an effective leader, get the most important things done. But each of those actions, whether it's do, delegate, delete, or defer, they're all important. It's just a matter of deciding which type of input you're dealing with.
You're exactly right.
Well, Jennifer, I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us. This has been great. Some great advice on some of the ways in which you work and get the job done, and really a great overview of a critically important organization in your community and in all communities where the YW operates. So I very much appreciate you taking the time to share your story with us.
It's been a real pleasure, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about our organization and also in context of what Asher Agency has done for YWCA Charleston.
Well, thanks.
Appreciate your partnership.
Well, and we appreciate yours too. Thanks for working with us.
Thanks.
And thank you to everyone who took the opportunity to listen to this episode of the Asher Marketing Podcast. We'll be back next time with another great guest, and we hope you'll join us then.